Warriors Unite! Back with another episode of Vega Warriors 2 in the 1% Club. Hope you guys are doing well. I was working on some stuff. I figured I haven't done a tape for a few days. I figured I'd do one. Hope you guys are having a great Sunday night. Hope you guys are enjoying yourselves. Hope you guys are conquesting yourselves, conquesting things around you, and therefore under God's purposes. You guys are kind of taking charge of yourselves. Self-control is a key. Brahmacharya, semen retention, all those things are together are important. So let's do some shout outs. Do I have any shout outs? Let's see if I got some shout outs. Yeah, I do. Okay, let's do some shout outs. I haven't caught up with this for a while here. Matriculated, thank you, my friend. John Jennings, thank you. Grand Wizard for real, 140 days. Keep it up, my friend. Excellent. Let's see what else I got. Lewispiritual, thank you. Jhamilton, 1007, thank you. Antonio Armando, thank you, my friend. Let's see, is that total right? Jeraenverreyken, thank you. Dr. Von Life's Investing, thank you. Javialfalrisco, thank you, my friend. Jhamilton again, 1007. Skylarrablackwell, thank you, my friend. Hizkiyaha, thank you. Callincassady, thank you. Ametal, thank you. God's Gladiator, thank you. Sultanjob, 708, thank you. Mr. High Vibration, thank you. Excellent. I like that. Blackpillaudrius, thank you, my friend. Barreal Ghost 13, Sincerelyme 7423, thank you. Dacrownmuzimo 3850 is at 203 days. Keep it up, my friend. Congratulations. Maromarostar 6621, thank you. JoJo Aces, thank you, my friend. Pedrogrimenz 3792. EA7, thank you. Dishkaondishkyyaondish, thank you. Lego King is cool, thank you. Benspecial and Sjoer, thank you. So the more difficult more names. Sorry if I got that wrong. I apologize. Thank you guys so much. All right, so at the 2-minute and 12-second mark, we are going to talk about an interesting topic here. It is called How to Deal with Destructive and Narcissistic Young Women. Okay, so this is an interesting one. So I have a lot of interesting topics you guys have talked about. I'm trying to catch up with some of them as we go through this. But let's talk about how we deal with this situation. All right, so we're basically kind of talking about, again, becoming the best male you can become. The highest value male, because you're following God's purposes. The whole thing we talk about is the fact that we need to follow God's purposes, and therefore you've got to keep those things within you that God has given you. And that makes perfect sense if you think about it. We're in a society that's trying to deplete men, and now the men is coming back, as my friend Kirby Shine talked about. Yes, I was happy with the what's happening in our country. We're starting to kind of move back. It looks like the men voted a lot this last election, and we're coming back. Men are trying to come back, and I think I see that happening, and I'm very happy to see that. So I think we're back on moving ahead, and people recognizing how important men are and the strength of men. So I like to see that happening. But to go back to what we're talking about, men need to be strong. Men need to be those protectors and providers, and men need to do that. So you got to become the best male you can become. So listening to all these things in society that tell you, go ahead, deplete your energy, do this, do that, kind of sacrificing yourself for the overall good and forgetting about the purposes and why you're with the Lord and God and your Creator, those things go against what you're trying to do. So therefore, as we talk about this topic, we're really talking about keeping yourself in line. Keeping yourself in line. That means focusing on your goals. Now, can you enjoy the company of young ladies? Yes. Whether it's your wife, girlfriend, whatever it might be, women are wonderful. I enjoy talking to women all the time. I enjoy companionship. I enjoy talking with women. There's no problem with that in my mind at all, because I think God's created men and women to be able to relate to and talk to each other. Now, again, but what's your final purpose in this whole thing? Your final purpose is to keep your energy and accomplish those things that God wants you to accomplish. If you're being distracted by women all the time, if you're not doing the things you should be doing, being in the Word of God, trying to meditate, those type of things, then you're essentially being distracted. And I've gotten distracted before. We all get distracted before. I had 47 years of back and forth, releasing and things like that. So I've had a lot of issues over the years. So I kind of know where I'm kind of talking about, because I've experienced and suffered through a lot of stuff a lot of you guys are suffering through. And I still suffer through the monk mode aspect of it, because it's very difficult to eliminate after all those years. It takes time to eliminate all those thoughts out of your head and your mind. And so I struggle with a lot of it just as well you do. I just do it in a different type of way now, because I've been blessed enough to kind of move past a little bit of that. I think up to 1,600 days or something like that. And so we're kind of at the point where now I have to kind of bring my game a little higher and focus on the monk mode more and keep that more consistent. And I'm still working on that part of it. But the thing is that as we look at this, we're focusing really on trying to determine our purpose, and our purpose becomes first. Now we're talking about young women, and women who in this modern age have really become more of they've been kind of told, because of feminism and all the things that they've learned, that they are the prize, to the level that men are basically just toxic, especially masculinity. And so men are not worth that much. They're just happen to be there. And that, we're repaying back all those years that women got mistreated. Well, if you really kind of examine the history of things, people don't keep being mistreated. They kind of come back and things change, and God finds a way to balance a lot of stuff out. And so all those, has there been people that have abused women? Of course. And there's women who've been abused, who abuse men as well. But the thing is that when you look at the bigger picture, there's always this idea, goes back to the caveman, cavewoman type of thing. The man is a strong one physically, so they have to go out and protect, and they've got to go out and get things. So women understand this. They have to be careful of who they're with all the time, because they want to protect themselves. And so they have, their brains are functioning in a survival mode. So all the drama, all the game playing, all those things that you see happens because of that basic instinct that they're trying to save themselves. And so it's a very common, simple thing to look at. At the same time, they realize that what they provide for the male, besides the actual physical types things we talk about, is more of the culturing the male and kind of helping the male kind of be more of a social type of creature, and basically, setting the culture. And so what happens then is that the female then does that, tries to do that with the male. The male's like the Beauty and the Beast type of thing again, that the male is the beast, but the male is a beast is what attracts the female. And the female then tries to change the male. But if she changes the male, a lot of times she doesn't want the male. And so there's this dichotomy that goes back and forth all the time between, whether or not the male is the beast, or the male is the one who's not the beast, who becomes more of the human. And so I think there's that kind of backwards and forward. But females will always try to nurture. They always try to look at things. And there's a great value in that for our society. We need that for our children. We need that for our families. But just to understand that is important. Now, when you see narcissistic and destructive women who basically are intent on using this philosophy that they don't like men for some reason. And I think, once again, this is not something that there's inherited in them, because as you see a lot of these women, I talk to a ton of them in their 30s and their 40s, even late 20s, who are kind of hitting what we call this wall type of thing. And what we mean by that is basically at some level, women realize that they are not attractive as much to men, especially in the ages of 20s and 30s, because as they get older, their looks change, and the younger women look more attractive. And so female and males, because they know they're more fertile in many ways, whether it's conscious or subconscious type of behavior, they will be more attracted to the younger females. And so the females then understand this is kind of the wall. And so there's a lot of females have trouble then going ahead and securing or finding a man for a long-term relationship. People will fool around all the time. But it's more of a case of they want a longer relationship to have a family and kids. This is the whole, kind of fantasy or misled type of idea that a lot of females have been taught, especially in their 20s and 30s and 40s, that they're focusing on, well, if they focus on their career, they're focusing on what they're doing, then they won't be able to go ahead and, they can wait till their 30s and have children and family. Well, that's not going to happen in many cases, because once they hit their 30s, chances of them having children become decreased. And so what happens then is a lot of females then decide, okay, well, I need to find somebody. And a lot of times the type of male they're looking for to have children with, because a lot of times subconsciously, we tend to, when we, kind of mate with somebody, we kind of see, well, what will our children look like? They want to find a strong male, a male who has good genes. But the problem with that is that they tend to find, men who don't want them anymore. They want the younger women. So you get this narcissistic behavior where females have been taught, well, they're very, very special, and males are not special. And so what happens is they become narcissistic. And then because of that, they become very destructive. They're not really givers, they're more takers. And you see more and more takers in the society than givers, and that's a downfall of society. If we go back to having more givers, and men tend to be more givers by nature, females tend to be more takers in some ways. But the thing is that it's exaggerated by the fact that females have such a bad attitude, especially modern women in America. You don't see this a lot in other places like even China or Russia or Ukraine or any of these places we're talking about, other than here and maybe a little bit in Europe. They have this attitude where they've learned, okay, well, I'm the best, I'm boss lady, all this kind of stuff that they have. And mentally, they just don't see that. And especially if they've lived on their own for a while, it's very difficult to kind of, for them to find females that really want to be with them and to actually go ahead and kind of have a relationship with them, especially if they've hit their 30s or late 20s or even, past the 30s. They could find people, but even the men they find most of the time are not going to really be interested unless they're kind of the simp, desperate variety. And females may marry them, but they're really not going to be fantasizing and be happy with them. And eventually it's going to be a disastrous type of marriage and things like that. And they'll probably end up cheating anyway, because they're really more fantasizing about those men who don't want them anymore, and because they're too old or things like that. So that's kind of the key to a lot of this. And so when we look at how to deal with this, and I think it's a good question. I'm not sure. I don't know how anybody actually put, well, maybe I do. Maybe it's Tom St. Ledger. So maybe Tom, you're the one that kind of suggested it. But how do we deal with this? Okay, so let's talk about dealing with this a little bit. So again, realize that people who are narcissistic, and I call it destructive as well, because they're very self-focused. Narcissistic mean they're only really thinking about themselves. And we all, if you want to take a philosophical approach to this, we all tend to think about ourselves most of the time. But when you're thinking yourself to the point of succeeding and winning over somebody so much that you're hurting the other person or taking advantage of them, then it becomes way out of hand, because then it's almost like you don't care about the other person at all. We always talk about this in persuasion classes, is that the idea is that you cannot really persuade someone who doesn't want to be persuaded unless you provide a win-win type of situation. You're winning, you get something out of it, I get something out of it. It could be attention, could be money, could be anything. There's a fair exchange that we're getting something out of it. If you both feel like that, then you're getting something out of it. But if you have one person who's getting something and the other person is being forced to do something, not getting something out of it, they'll get mad, and eventually they'll find a way to get back at you for doing that. And this is what we're talking about when people become destructive, because those narcissistic people, they never create a win-win, right? They always create lose-loses because they want to win. They want to create a win-lose. And so as a result of that, anytime you create a win-lose, you win, the other person loses, then you really have a lose-lose, because that person is going to find a way to get back at you one way or another. You do it enough, you get a whole group of people getting back at you. And this is what we talk about when people get themselves in trouble with the law and things like that. So the thing is that you really want to have a person who you create a win-win with. So when you have a narcissistic person, that person basically is focusing on themselves so much, they don't care about other people. And as a result of that, what happens is that they create a destructive path for themselves. As they go through, they have less and less friends, they have less and less people around them, and they become more narcissistic, and in many cases, women become more like cat women, who basically just have cats running around, and their best friends are the cats. So when you look at this, this is what happens most of the time with women who get older, because as they get older, they become more and more set in their ways, and they're not more willing to settle down with that male, and especially if they're not they're more of a simp male, they're desperate, they put the woman on a pedestal, and then what happens is they become more, they fall right into that pattern. Women still never get out of that pattern, and they still think they're the hot, you know what, and so they never get put back into place of becoming a humble person, and so they kind of end up destroying that person along with themselves in the long run. And a lot of the women end up really bitter, angry, unhappy, depressed, things like that. We talk about the fact that almost 1 out of 4 women are taking pills, medications, things like that, because there is a lot of stuff, and it leads to mental illness, a lot of kind of stuff, because of the way the approach has been, and this narcissistic behavior is inside. See, in my viewpoint, God has given us the ability to give. If you give and you have a heart that's giving to people, you're strong, but you got a heart that's giving. You're giving people, helping people out, serving God's purposes, you get rewarded. And part of that reward is that mental health, that peace that comes with that God is with you and you're working with God. You're working with the Creator. Because of that, then, you're basically going ahead and kind of showing that you are faithful with your energy. And because of your energy, you're basically focusing on your goals. And this is the best way to deal with narcissistic behavior. Because when people are narcissistic, they're expecting you to chase them. So women are expecting you to chase them. That's the last thing you should ever do. Now, I made that mistake so many times as I was growing up. Now I'm 63, so you talk about when you're in my 20s and things like that. You do a lot of that stuff, and because we're taught that's the way women want us to do it, and this is exactly wrong. It's the opposite way. Everything we taught in society has been made out to hurt males, and kind of have males become less powerful than to help males, and this is one of those things. You should never chase women. Women actually are chasing you anyway. They're giving you signs. They're telling you they want to mate and things like that, but they're not going to come out and do that. Now, you see more aggressive women of lately, because males are not doing, especially with the MGTOW movement. They're not chasing women anymore. They're not coming after, not even asking for dates. So women are becoming more aggressive because they're coming out now and showing their true colors. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just kind of saying that hasn't been the case. And the males have always thought they should be chasing females. And I thought that was the case too. And that's really not the case. And so what happens then is that if you're focusing on your goals, if you're focusing on getting better every day, if you're focusing on what you got to do, you're not concerned about the women. And narcissistic women, destructive women, they will just go off doing their own thing, but they will come after you because now you're not paying attention to them. Remember, the best way to deal with all these women is to keep on your goals. Make yourself a self-improvement idea. Do not bother with chasing these women. Don't worry about calling them back. If you get a chance, that's great. Now, I'm not being cold-hearted, but you've got to avoid distractions. And women who are narcissistic, they feel like you should be paying attention to them, that they basically are the prize, and your only existence here is basically because of them. Now, I know it sounds strange, but this is what they've been taught, how bad males are, that basically we're just here. And, if you ask a lot of the women in these movements, they'll tell you that men are not needed. They have no clue in reality. They're living in a delusional world because they've been taught that. And again, you have to pray for a lot of these people because they're not totally responsible. They've been taught things. Now, yes, they should be able to kind of think at a certain period of time that I should be able to kind of change my thought pattern here. But nonetheless, they're still thinking that way. And even after last week's election, they're still thinking that way. They don't feel like that. They feel like all these other people who are just kind of acting like real men are just worthless. And so when you have that attitude, it's going to come out in many different ways. And so, as you deal with them, a lot of men are walking away from those women. And that's really what they should be doing. Because the bottom line is these women who are narcissistic, they become destructive, they're going to destroy themselves. And you don't want to be part of that, around that type of thing as you do it. So the whole key to answer this question is how to deal with destructive and narcissistic women is to focus on your goals. Again, is one of the solutions we always have. Do the betterment plan for yourself. Get yourself in shape. Get to the point where you're eating the right foods. Get yourself to the point where you are focusing on bettering yourself intellectually, physically, spiritually. Get your point to the point where you're so razor focused that these women just become a distraction. And don't allow the women to control your behavior. You control your behavior. If you want to be nice to a woman, that's great, but don't allow her to control the behavior. All right, friends, I hope I helped you in this one. I'll try to do another one soon as I can. A lot of things going on right now, but trying to catch up with some of these when I get a chance. Hope you guys have a great Sunday evening, the rest of the evening. Hope you guys continue to follow God's purposes, continuing to battle the evil one, battle these temptations. And remember always two things I tell you guys. First, every day is a new day to a great warrior. And you guys are always great warriors. So I'm going to have you guys have a great rest of this evening and great tomorrow. And you know, as I'm going to say this, is you got to continue to fight and fight and fight, because we got to continue to battle on! Take care, guys. Have a great evening. Take care. Bye-bye.